Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shipman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. We're at one of those kind of in-between weeks with the big summer meets at Del Mar and Saratoga finished and waiting for Belmont to open back up. Kentucky Downs is now finished. What do you want to talk about today?
Hey, Matt, first off, we had over a week off, so I want to apologize to all our viewers out there. It's good to be back. We're in transition from Tony Bada Bing as the old producer to Ben Wilkie as our new producer, so we're excited about that. We're going to talk Breeders' Cup today, Matt. That's we're getting to a point now where some of these horses won't even run again before the Breeders' Cup. We're less than 8 weeks out now, Matt, and I think we're shaping up for some very interesting races. The first one we want to jump into, of course, is the Breeders' Cup Classic. And we're going to see kind of a top 10 list, kind of a universal top 10 list. I'm sure our top 10 might be a little bit different. But it looks like Brad Cox right now has the two favorites, Matt. On the top of the list, we have Essential Quality. He's taken over the Breeders' Cup top spot in the rankings, Matt. And it's really hard to fault this horse who's only lost once in his career. And once again in the Travers, I think it's almost better than it looks because Midnight Bourbon really did have the race kind of to his own devices there, Matt, with the pace he sat. Essential Quality had to do the work, had to run him down. Midnight Bourbon was terrific, but Essential Quality still, he's unstoppable when he wants to get to the wire first.
Yeah, it seems that way, and I like the description that you threw out there, Brian. That you thought his Travers performance is better than it looks. He's just that kind of horse, and he's put together a heck of a resume this year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's put up a terrific resume this year. He's put up a terrific resume last year, Matt. And I think the Breeders' Cup Juvenile was kind of a sign of things to come. He's won a few races easily in Arkansas and maybe before the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But you see these races now, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the Belmont, the Bluegrass, now the Travers. It's just a great example of a horse you feel like at the eighth pole, even though it's a race, you just feel like he's going to get there. And he did it again in the Travers. He's never raced against older horses. That's a big step up. He's never raced out in Southern California, although he has taken his track places. You know, he's run all over. He's run well wherever he's been before, and he's run at a number of different tracks. So a big threat to the 3-year-old, and certainly I think he's going to be the 3-year-old champion no matter what happens at the Breeders' Cup. But Brad Cox has another one who could be the favorite right now. Knicks Go. It looks like we're going to see him in the Lucas Classic as his last prep. That's 9 furlongs at Churchill Downs coming up, Matt. Knicks Go, another horse who very different than Essential Quality. He wants to be on the lead. He wants to freewheel it, and he was able to do that in the Whitney.
Yeah, he sure was. And you know, you say what you want to say, Brian, about him getting everything his way in the Whitney, and maybe, you know, and that made it tough for the rest of the field. That is all true, but boy, he was so impressive in doing that. It's one thing to say going into a big race that this horse should have a pace advantage and this horse should be able to do this or do that. But Knicks Go did all of the things expected to him in the Whitney, and clearly when he gets on the lead and can control a race, he's very hard to beat.
Yeah, and he's a little bit, you know, we've been handicapping longer than we care to share, Matt. But you know, one of the things we look for is a speed horse who can kind of set an easy pace, you know, out there on his own. Knicks Go, you know, he kind of forces the issue because he runs fast early. It's not so much an easy pace, but if it's a pace where he is clear of the other horses, clearly he becomes a huge threat at 2 turns. 10 furlongs is a question, and then we question, yeah, if pace is going to make this race in the Breeders' Cup Classic because of Knicks Go, is there going to be some serious pressure that he hasn't faced? Maybe it comes from a horse like Medina Spirit, who won the Kentucky Derby this year, Matt. That'll be interesting to see. The third horse on this list right now, Matt, is Maxfield. He was my choice at the beginning of the year to win this Breeders' Cup Classic. I am stubborn. I'm a stubborn man. I know that. I realize that's a fault of mine, but I still like Maxfield. Say what you will about the Whitney, what you just did, but I just don't think things stacked up very well for Maxfield. I think he'll get a little bit different scenario, 10 furlongs, more speed for him in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, Brian, for a second there, the way you were talking and my jaw was going to drop. It sounded like you were jumping off of Maxfield there, but thank goodness you didn't disappoint me there. And say what you want to say about the Whitney, but just take a look at the record of Maxfield. He's another one. He's only lost twice, never been off of the board. And still, has the feeling of a horse that has room to improve and develop. Certainly, the 10 furlong distance will not be a problem.
No, I don't think it will be either. Despite the fact that his first career loss came in the big cap, I think that trip out to California at 10 furlongs without a lot of pace in the race, I think that'll do him some good as he tries it again at Del Mar. Now we're talking about a horse who's going to be no better than the third choice in here. Looks like he's going to run in Woodward, the son of Street Sense, trained by Brendan Walsh. But again, folks, I like him a lot, and I think the Whitney is a different race than we'll see in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Hopefully that plays out for Maxfield. Another Max on our list, Matt, has to be Max Player. Max Player did not look good to his last couple of races last year. His first couple of races this year just were not good. But 10 furlongs, he showed more pace in the Suburban. And then he trumped that performance in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, again, showing more early pace than we ever saw before from him. All of a sudden, he's a threat.
All of a sudden, Brian, I think there was a trainer change in the midst of, or before that, all of a sudden. And we're talking about running now from the barn of Steve Asmussen, who won so many big races at Saratoga this summer. And, he's done good things with horses as they've gotten older. They have gotten better and better. Maybe Max Player's another one of them.
Yeah, off the last two performances, I'm not sure he cracks those top three as far as what I think his chances are. But I'm thinking there's going to be some pressure to Knicks Go. This field will be not letting Knicks Go easily, at least. So pace helps Max Player. The trainer change, it happened a while ago. He's been with Asmussen. He's run 4 races for Steve Asmussen, but yeah, maybe it took him a while to figure out Max Player. And it seems like with that more early speed that he's been showing, he's a new horse. Hot Rod Charlie, Matt, saved the Louisiana Derby. He's had a tough career where he's run so many good races. I guess the Haskell, he did finish first, but of course taken down. A really nice horse for trainer Doug O'Neill. We'll get to see him in the Penn Derby coming up soon.
Yeah, that Pennsylvania Derby is an important race as you look ahead for the Breeders' Cup Classic. With Hot Rod Charlie coming back, looking for a big performance to prep for that, and I think how he runs in the Pennsylvania Derby will determine whether we see Hot Rod Charlie, and for that matter, Medina Spirit, if he goes in the Pennsylvania Derby also. Both of those trainers like to send horses to Parx, and we know that the winner of the Pennsylvania Derby in the past has come back to win the Breeders' Cup Classic.
That's right, and speed horses to boot. Hot Rod Charlie probably chases Medina Spirit early, and they've already met a few times. I think that would be a very interesting race. Hot Rod Charlie's hard not to like because he just runs so many good races, even if his record only has that one stakes win. Matt, I just want to remind our viewers out there, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss another HorseCenter episode. Number 6 on this list, Matt, is Tripoli. Tripoli, I don't know why I'm saying Tripoli all of a sudden. Son of Kitten's Joy, Matt, been a new horse since he's tried dirt 3 starts ago, and he's got 2 nice races over the Del Mar main track, which you have to consider looking at a Breeders' Cup Classic at Del Mar.
Yeah, you have to pay attention to the home field advantage at Del Mar, and his win in the Pacific Classic was a very nice one.
Yeah, I agreed with you, by the way, which you said about Maxfield. I think there's still room for his best performance to come. I think that's probably true of Tripoli as well. but he seems to be getting better with every start. The Pacific Classic was a nice performance, 10 furlongs at Del Mar. Now, there's a few horses on this list that I really don't expect to be in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but we had to show the due respect for what they've accomplished on dirt this year. Letruska and Mishra both are on the list out of respect for what they've done. I think Letruska is really more likely to end up in the Distaff, but if she's in this race, she creates an interesting proposition with her speed and her class.
Yeah, and I guess if I was the owner or trainer of Letruska, I would go with the Distaff too. But hey, Brian, yeah, I don't think you can argue about the fact that she, give me a horse that has a better resume and has had a better campaign in 2021 than Letruska. You're not going to come up with very many names.
Yeah, absolutely. And they really haven't ducked anything this year. So maybe a try against males is in the cards. I just don't expect it in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Midnight Bourbon, Matt, a little bit like Hot Rod Charlie. He runs a lot of good races. He hasn't been connecting with the win. But I think we saw the true Midnight Bourbon in the Travers. And if that's true, you have to consider him a threat with his speed or tactical speed, 1.25 miles out of Del Mar.
Yeah, Brian, that's absolutely for sure. Again, another horse from this 3-year-old crop that has run so well in so many races. Very rarely has he run a bad race. 3-year-olds have done well and won the Breeders' Cup Classic plenty of times. But again, we'll see what the connections decide to do with him.
Yeah, I would expect to see him in the Classic. We said Cox has the obvious 1-2 punch of essential quality, and Knicks Go, trainer Brad Cox. Steve Asmussen has a very interesting duo himself in Max Player and Midnight Bourbon. Midnight Bourbon sire, of course, Tisnow is the 2-time winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic. Midnight Bourbon looks like he likes 10 furlongs off that Travers and the trouble, the way he ran on in the Kentucky Derby after the terrible break. Midnight Bourbon's an interesting long shot as we move forward. Medina Spirit came back with a nice win last time, Matt, after a layoff after his Preakness loss. It was the Shared Belief at Del Mar. Lots of speed for Medina Spirit, the Bob Baffert trained winner of the Kentucky Derby, unless the courts take it away from him. Matt, Medina Spirit will run, it looks like, in the Pennsylvania Derby, as you mentioned, against Hot Rod Charlie.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see in that Pennsylvania Derby contest, because Hot Rod Charlie is no slouch, as we've been talking about. Going to be a heck of a matchup, and we'll see how Medina Spirit can do. Just coming off that long layoff with the one race in the Shared Belief.
Yeah, one race, but it's kind of a nice a lead up to the Breeders' Cup Classic, if you will, because he goes the Shared Belief, then he goes a little tougher in the Pennsylvania Derby, then he should be ready for a run in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And in some ways, I think he's one of the keys to the Breeders' Cup Classic, because he's the horse, I think, that could give Knicks Go trouble for the first mile of the Breeders' Cup Classic and make things tougher for Knicks Go moving forward, the potential Breeders' Cup Classic favorite. Last horse on the list, Matt, I touched on already a little bit. Mishriff has just been a wonderful, wonderful horse for trainer John Gosden. If they do come to the Breeders' Cup, I think the Breeders' Cup turf is more likely, certainly more likely. He is a turf horse. He's one of the best turf horses in the world. But on the other hand, look what he's done on dirt over in Saudi Arabia, including the big one this year. So I think if they do decide to come to America, it's always possible that they decide to go for the bigger race, the Breeders' Cup Classic, with his dirt past performances. And if so, he's a threat.
Yeah, particularly, John Gosden has had tremendous success in the Breeders' Cup. He knows how to bring them over to run in the big races, whether it's the turf or whether it's the Classic. And we've seen Euros come over and do really well in the Classic before.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether they win it or they run really well in defeat, they have maybe not so much the last few years, but European turf horses have done well in the Breeders' Cup Classic in the past. All right, that's our early look at the Classic, Matt. Let's talk Distaff. Judging from what we've seen this year and judging the way people are talking, this would seem to be Letruska's race to win. Is it as easy as Letruska, if she's in it, she wins it?
I don't know about that, Brian, because if we're talking about, is it as easy as it looks? Is it as easy as her past performances look compared to the rest of the 3 and 4 year olds and older dirt females? Well, yeah, on paper, but again, how long is she going to keep that winning streak going? She loves to travel and has done well all over the country. She's made a shambles of the older female dirt division, which we thought was going to be really contentious.
She has, but I kind of liked where you were headed, because you started to say, hey, this is not a done deal for Letruska if she's in the race. Because I think the personal ensign, we saw a pretty tough race for Letruska. They took the race to a little too early. She really had to work down the stretch, and she was beating horses who were good, but maybe not quite as good as she will see in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. I also want to remind our viewers this, Matt. Letruska has one loss this year. It's to Shedaresthedevil. She Dares the Devil. Shedaresthedevil, Matt, has one loss this year, and it's to Letruska. So they've split their 2 meetings this year. Granted, Letruska won the bigger race. She did it easier, but Shedaresthedevil has beaten Letruska once this year out of 2 tries, and she's only lost once. Letruska is headed to the Spinster. It looks like Shedaresthedevil will be running at Churchill Downs before the Spinster. I just want to remind people how good Shedaresthedevil has been this year, maybe in slightly smaller races than Letruska, maybe not quite as so much in the limelight, but she also has a really nice win at Del Mar, grade 1 last time in the Clement Hirsch.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we got to make note of the fact that she's already run out in California at Del Mar and got a nice victory out there. Hey, I have so much respect for Letruska and what she has accomplished. But, she's the kind of horse, she runs hard. She runs hard every single race, out there setting the pace, going fast. It's not like a horse who, will, run easy in the beginning of the race and make a closing move. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting what field assembles and comes to take a shot against her in Distaff.
Yeah, big respect from me for Shedaresthedevil as a really big older mare threat who wasn't in the personal ensign. But then also, I really like Malathaat. I mean, that's not saying anything. She's just been wonderful. She's only lost once in her career as well. And with a lot of kind of speed types, or horses that could at least take the race to Letruska a little bit early, a horse like Malathaat, who can finish her races with a real punch. She's shown that she can do well pretty much on the lead or close to the lead, but she has the ability to finish these races. Malathaat is very interesting to me in the Distaff, and now we're talking about her as maybe the third choice.
Yeah, and so here we are, Brian. We've talked about 3 horses here that have awfully impressive resumes in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kentucky Oaks winner of the last 2 years are there to challenge Letruska in the Distaff, and it looks like to be a pretty deep race as well. Speaking of deep Breeders' Cup races, we got to talk about the Breeders' Cup Sprint a little bit, because Jackie's Warrior, Matt, what he has done, the first experimental race, I guess, this year was around 2 turns against Essential Quality. That didn't work. First race off of layoffs, But then he's dropped back down to 1 turn, which he absolutely loved as a juvenile. And the heart, the fight, the spirit that he's shown after just having tough times early in these races has just frankly been pretty amazing to me. He's my favorite sprinter, but then I look what he's going to have in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and it certainly doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, the Jackie's Warrior, the Steve Asmussen run, are one of those horses that's gotten big wins for Asmussen that I referenced earlier, and yeah, his victory at the end of the summer at Saratoga was absolutely terrific. But as you said, the list of horses, talented sprinters, just grows and grows, seemingly each week we get another absolutely threat to win this race. It was Flightline just a couple of weeks ago, coming back with a big victory in his second start. Then there's Bo Liam, another version of that of Flightline in the East, now 3 for 3. Both of them don't have a stakes win yet. And, I don't know how many horses are going to sign up to enter the sprint, but, there are priorities to get in. And I think both of those horses need to get a nice stakes win before the Breeders' Cup to ensure that they're going to get in the field.
Well, I absolutely love Flightline, Matt, but I just don't think that they're going to go for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I think this is a two-turn horse for next year. Flightline, I just think he's a special horse. But you're right, horses, lightly raced horses, and we've seen this a little bit lately with the sprint. Lightly raced horses just all of a sudden show how talented they are. And if we expect to see that in the Breeders' Cup Sprint this year, yeah, I think it's going to be a gigantic field again, a very big field, and there's going to be a ton of speed. And then you got to talk about the older horses like Forenzi Fire and Yaupine coming out of the Forgo the other day. CZ Rocket is always tough. Dr. Shivel has looked really good. Ginobili has seemingly turned a huge corner of late. So yeah, just a loaded race. Going back to that Jerkins Memorial, I thought it was one of the races of the year, Matt. Jackie's Warrior showed how tough he is in the Pathé Mile. He showed how tough he is even in his loss in the Woody Stevens. The Amsterdam, of course, was huge, but just a game horse. And for Life is Good to run that good off such a long layoff. I mean, we saw how talented Life is Good was at the beginning of the year when he dominated Medina Spirit in a Kentucky Derby prep out in California. So I just thought the Jerkins Memorial was a huge race on both ends. The winner, Jackie's Warrior, is just tough as nails, but then Life is Good. That was a huge return race. So I'm really interested to see what Life is Good does, maybe with one more race before the Breeders' Cup. I'm thinking Dirt Mile, Matt, makes a lot of sense for Life is Good. He could face really tough older horses like Silver State or By My Standards, but how good is Life is Good?
I know. I absolutely agree. And Brian, I'm a big fan of the Dirt Mile. I think it provides a great opportunity for horses who come from connections that say, hey, my horse is not going to get the 10 furlongs or isn't at that point in their career yet. And that's what the Dirt Mile provides to the Breeders' Cup. And yeah, I think for Life is Good at this point in his career, it makes a lot of sense coming off that long layoff. We already know he's run well going 2 turns, and at Del Mar, the Dirt Mile will be 2 turns. If I was trading Life is Good or the owner, I think I would lean towards the Dirt Mile.
Yeah, the Dirt Mile is interesting. I mentioned Silver State. I guess I mentioned By My Standards. I got to mention Art Collector, who's come back really good of late, who made a splash last year as well. So that Dirt Mile, we very a fluid race at the moment, but I think we'll see another good Dirt Mile. So many things to mention about the Breeders' Cup, Matt. Galmin, of course, is just going to be a huge favorite in the filly and mare sprint. I don't know. Maybe Bella Sophia is the most interesting contender right now, but hard to look past Galmin in that race. Golden Pal came back, really awesome looking winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint last year. He may be on track to get another Breeders' Cup in this turf sprint if he's as talented as he looks. I do want to talk about the turf a little bit more, but that's also a little bit more fluid. Santa Barbara coming over for Aiden Bryan has looked terrific. She should appreciate the mile 3/8 of the filly and mare turf, but Warlike Goddess has just been a monster of late for trainer Bill Mott. So that 11 furlongs, I think, separates things a little bit, Matt, for the distance fillies from the shorter middle distance fillies. But maybe Santa Barbara or Warlike Goddess can fight off those European contenders. Then in the Breeders' Cup turf, going 1.5 miles, you got horses like Domestic Spending. I always like Gufo. But Domestic Spending seemed to take things to a different level in his win in the Manhattan. That was 10 furlongs, but I really don't worry too much about him going 12 furlongs, and I really don't worry too much about that loss in the Arlington Million.
No, but that's for sure, Brian. That horse that won the Arlington Million, as we like to call it, got a huge pace advantage in there, and still domestic spending made a really good run at the end. Seems to be the strongest contender for the Americans in the turf, but boy, it's going to be a tough group of Europeans coming over, Brian. And maybe, I don't know what the plans are for that St. Mark's Basilica that just ran a huge race at Leopardstown to win the champion stakes. The St. Mark's Basilica now has 5 grade ones in there, but there are plenty of other Euros that are going to be coming on, and I think are going to be very tough this year.
Yeah, it's true, as it's true many years. But I like domestic spending as a really good horse who can compete with the best Euros. I have a soft spot for Gufo. Maybe a lot of people didn't like how he won the Sword Dancer as overly impressive, but Gufo just comes every time. And I know he likes 12 furlongs. Yeah, that Irish Champion Stakes you mentioned from yesterday was super good race for St. Mark's Basilica, a 3-year-old who's just been dominating over there. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the Arc. But the mare Tarnawa, who's won at the Breeders' Cup last year, looked awfully good because she got a wide trip in that Irish Champions. Domestic spending, though, I think that he is a horse who could defend our turf. Matt, that is our Breeders' Cup early look. What did I say? Less than 8 weeks out. I called it the Arlington Million. I guess it's the Mr. D now, or at least this past year. My bad, folks. But that's our Breeders' Cup look. Less than 8 weeks out. We got a lot to talk about. I think next week we're going to focus on Parx, Pennsylvania Derby, and the Cotillion. 2 big races there. So that's exciting, Matt. Can I get a parting shot from you, my friend?
Yeah, we'll certainly have to talk about those big 3-year-old races at Philadelphia Park. At Parx next weekend. And I want to welcome our new producer, Ben Wilkie, to the HorseCenter team and thank him for putting together his first show.
Yeah, thanks to Ben, who also works on the Naira Fox broadcast. So that's pretty exciting for that young man. Welcome, Ben. Thank you, folks, for watching every week. We sure do appreciate it. Sorry about that little gap between shows here, but hopefully you enjoy this one a whole lot. We'll be back next week talking about those Pennsylvania races. And I also want to thank Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. They're our sponsor. Thanks to Candace Curtis for our graphic. We'll see you next week right here on HorseCenter.